But I was even telling someone yesterday, right? So like in the 50s, there's a series of events that led to the civil rights movements in the 60s. And then during the civil rights movement, was it way more openly and comfortable than probably the 50s? Probably. Just like right now, is it way more openly and comfortable than it was back in January? Yes, right? But did the stuff that happened in the 60s actually move us forward more? Yeah, like is it perfect? No, but like before the 60s and then after the 60s, was there more just like conscious effort for equality? So for segregation to end, so for people to not have to go like people of color have to not go to separate schools. Yeah, there's actually real change that happened out of that, right? And then if you're watching like people get sprayed down in like Montgomery, Alabama, which I lived there for a few months, right? But then there's like videos, like old black and white videos of people just getting sprayed down and dogs innocent on them. It was messed up in the 60s, and some definite changes came from that, right? So like, just because it seems really, really shitty right now, doesn't mean like, like in the future, like we're not gonna look back and be like, man, it was like a real gift. And it sucks right now, like going through it, right? It's so uncomfortable. Why didn't it, why don't people just stop? Like, it had to happen. You know why it had to happen? Because it's actually happening right now. So like resisting it, we're making it wrong, we're judging it. It's just like putting a lot of
makes it really tough to go through.
Yeah, you're essentially torturing yourself because you're resisting what's actually happening rather than just like accepting that what's happening is what's happening.
And as you accept it, you can get the gifts.
Yeah, and then as it's happening, you're accepting it, then you have the freedom to actually choose who you want to be and how you want to show up during this time. Because if you resist it, then you don't even have that freedom. What you're actually focused on and where you're stuck in is a person who's resisting what's happening right now, right? And when you're resisting what's happening right now, you're more stressed. You won't even have access to certain parts. You won't have access to your, essentially the upper executive function portion of your brain. And then you actually drop down to right or wrong, good or bad. Let's focus on statues. Let's focus on flags. Let's focus on masks, right? And then you could tell like there's, if you're watching this podcast, probably gonna offend some people. Oh well, right? It is literally like a dog whistle. A dog whistle is like at a certain frequency. When you blow it, like humans can't hear it, but the dogs can hear it.
Yeah.
I literally feel like some of the communication going on out there right now, some people are like just eat it up, right? On social media, you just eat it up. Like, oh my God, like look at this message. They just jump in on it. And then other people are watching. It's like, what the hell is going on? Like, I don't understand why. Like, I don't understand how you don't get this, or like how you're so riled up over this subject. Like, it makes no sense to me because it's literally a communication at a certain frequency. If you're not at that frequency, it's like you're watching like a ridiculous movie or something. Right? Like how is this how is it actually happening? It's because it's not communicating at the frequency that you're at.
Yeah, and a lot with that is communicating through like the lower stages, which are communicating through the hindbrain. It's like reactive brain.
Yeah, so like I think this will probably be the first time I actually like publicly share my thoughts on Trump on recording. So the 5 people that watch this or listen to it. Oh my God, I'm gonna get quoted. Okay.
Make a clip of it, share it everywhere.
I'll just say this about Trump, okay? I am not a Trump fan. Like, I'm not. It doesn't mean like I hate him. Like I'm gonna call him the orange turd and like throw all this insults at him. Okay. So what he does is he is a genius. And I'm gonna play on Luke. He's a genius. He's a genius. No, he is a genius at essentially not feeling the pressure of social conditioning. So the stuff he can say, especially in public and like in a public stage where like, okay, a politician should act this way, an adult man should act this way, a successful business owner should act this way. It literally is like he doesn't feel that pressure at all, and he can just say whatever he wants, right? So essentially, he has like a reality that he's just living in, right? Some people think he might be, he might have Asperger's, or he's on the spectrum, or I don't know, right? But regardless, he's a genius Kanye West is the same way too, right? They're weird as fuck, right? Like people see them like, holy shit. It's literally like they live in their own world, and they are immune to the social pressures that a lot of people feel. Now, there's like obviously pros and cons to that. The con is, you know, like you just stand out like a sore thumb. But one of the pros is when you're that way, you actually could get people to start conforming to your reality, right? So like some of the stuff that comes out of his mouth now, anyone else said that like 5-6 years ago, it would have been like, oh my God, but he literally just says it, stands there, owns it, and just keeps going and keeps going. And like even like people's like tolerance for the stuff that comes out of his mouth has changed, right? Like it's like if Trump says something, it has to be like over here to be so offensive to people. Whereas like someone else just says it like here, and then it like riles everyone up, right? So he has like way more belief. So essentially, like I never thought I would see this. You have one man who has essentially like distorted like the reality of the political world. Okay, do I think he's like this like great like hero who's like playing chess and all that stuff? I mean, highly unlikely. Like you know, I don't know for sure. He could be. Then he's just also like the world's greatest actor. I don't know, right? Like, and that's where like the far right like conspiracy theories. But like what I think is more likely, he's just a guy who for some reason doesn't feel the social pressure. He can say what he wants. He goes fake news. He says all this stuff, and he says it in a way that's very destabilizing to the existing structure. Pre-existing political system. So our previous political system was built on, okay, who can seem the most stately, who can say the most politically correct answers, who can actually basically play the game of politics. And then you have this guy who comes around who blows that stereotype away, but then is able to own it in a way that seems more real, okay? And you're gonna capture a huge part of the population, right? So
authenticity wins.
So yeah, even though he's not necessarily a great guy, right? Like, you know, he incites a lot of like stage 2 or polarity, right?
Yeah.
But you can't, like, even if you're the biggest Trump hater, it would be really hard for you to argue that Hillary Clinton is more authentic than Trump. Trump, no matter what he is, you can say he's authentic. He is authentic, like with like the shit he says. He says rude things. He says stuff that puts people down. Like I get that, but he's more authentic. So one, it's going to resonate with more people. My thoughts right now, with the way everything's going, and you know, if you really don't like him, then you know, think about this. Right now, the anti-Trump people, you want to see what's happening, right? They're where they're going for the most part, and this is on Facebook or even in person. They go to insult him.
Yeah.
So you call him names, you put him down. You're not going to beat him in his own game, right? That's what he does. If your argument is how bad of a person he is, you call him names, and then you just say how despicable a human being he is, you're literally falling and playing his own game, rather than actually talk about something that unites and inspires people. You're making it more like you're playing on his battlefield. Who do you think is going to win? Like you have the Trump supporters who just eat that stuff up. It's almost like like if I challenge you to a dance-off, right? I'm going to get destroyed. Why would I go like challenge you to a dance-off? I would actually pick another battlefield where I can win, and then build my campaign on that, right? And the other one too is right now a lot of the political narrative is, okay, well, like your silence is violence. Like think about it.
That's what we were just talking about that too.
Think about it. Your silence is violence. So basically saying you have to openly agree with me and say the stuff that I'm saying and then take the actions that I'm taking, or you're on the other side, right? Just know most people are more moderate, and they actually will have some like beliefs that are more on the conservative side, more on the liberal side, right? You could also call them moderate, independent, whatever you want to call it. And there's people that are far more on the liberal side, and then some that are far more on the conservative side. Okay. It seems like if you're even a little bit liberal now, you're taking a stance that you have to actually be on this liberal side, or else you're an idiot, or you're a Trump supporter, you're ignorant, whatever. Like you're essentially pushing people that are not in full agreement with you to the other side. What do you think is going to happen? Like, what do you think is going to happen? And that's like the most ironic thing. Like, the more a lot of this stuff is going on, like when you want to post about, like, you want to make masks a political issue and then you want to insult Trump while you do it. Like, it's almost like if someone doesn't fully agree with you with masks, right? You're lumping them in with the people that don't fully agree with you with Trump. And just like, by the way, like the human association mind works, you're pushing them to actually be more open to Trump just because at least Trump isn't openly like insulting them, right? It's the craziest thing, and it's like this is blatantly happening.
It's like if you are like going into work and you have a coworker that constantly like says, "Oh, you do this wrong. I don't like the way you do this. This is bad. You should do this. You should do this. This is the right way to do this. You're doing this wrong." If someone's constantly doing that to you, you don't want to be around them. And you don't want to associate with them.
Yeah, right.
And you sometimes want to do the opposite of what they're saying.
Or at the very least, then you have like Donald over there in the end of the room. Like, he's a jackass, but at least he's not constantly like criticizing me.
Right, and at least he's being authentic and being himself.
Yeah, that's a completely like a losing formula to build a campaign. Again, just my opinion, right? Like my personal opinion. I already gave my opinion on Trump. I'm not big into politics because, you know, as you probably suspected, it's more like individual responsibility. And then when enough people are embodying the change we wish to see in the world, automatically our political system will evolve. Yeah. Because right now, you have to play the political game to climb up. So someone who actually emerges in that political system, it's highly unlikely they're actually going to be equipped to really make the difference. And honestly, the real difference doesn't come from one person or even like a small group of people that are putting in policies. It's actually a population, right, that embodies certain things that will actually elect the people that will actually change something. Yeah. Right. It's not the like focus on educating people, having them eat healthier, having them actually be able to critically think, having them actually focus on taking personal responsibility to embody the change that they actually want to see in the world, right? Like, that will actually automatically make sure the right person gets in office. Because if people are like that, the people that are actually manipulative or doing the wrong things, they wouldn't even be able to climb up in the political system, because the political system will have to automatically evolve. If people in general were smarter, healthier, more awake, were able to critically think, our education system has to evolve. Because right now, the way our educational system works, it actually does the opposite. You teach people to memorize information. You don't teach them to actually understand and to be able to integrate it, right? Like, just look at how we're like teaching math, right? What's that thing, like Common Core? I get the idea of Common Core. If you don't know what Common Core is, you might. You're young enough.
I don't know what Common Core is.
It might have came around after you, right? But it's almost like, okay, here's how we count. Here's a square, and if you go to the square over here, here's a number, right? So you're teaching them how to get to the answer, but you're essentially taking out the critical thinking component of math so they could get the right answer. So yes, they can get the right answer, but you're actually taking out the ability to conceptualize numbers and be able to organize it in a way. It's a mental muscle. You can actually train it.
Someone was just talking to me today about the Waldorf school and the way they teach within a Waldorf school. And there are some of them around. She said there's like one in Tampa and one in Boca. Yeah. There's not one in Orlando, but they're in Europe as well. But the Waldorf school, ages 1 to 7 is pure like imagination and playtime. Like, you don't want to teach them anything between 1 and 7 because you want to cultivate their imagination at that age. And then from 7 to 14, it's within 7 years, because those are like so from 7 to 14, then you start teaching them math and all these sorts of things, but they're constantly balancing out the right and left hemispheres of the brain. So while they're teaching them math, they're also doing art and creating like sculptures, and like, so they're blending in like the left and right side of the brain to let everything kind of like.
I love it. Well, it's just like again, the mystery episode, right? We had Adam on, so at the end he said,
Oh,
There was
yeah.
2 rules that they had. So every rule they had for their kid had to be based on 1 or 2 principles. So one is be useful and one is be kind. Okay? Being useful can mean so many things, but you had to actually be able to contribute and create value. Okay? Ultimately, being useful is to be able to actually produce value. If you don't provide value, by that definition, you're actually not useful because you have no value. Okay? So you can entertain people, you can actually help raise them up. You could produce goods that actually provide value. Like there's all these things you can do to provide value. In our society right now, there's an abundance of jobs that are like middlemen of middlemen, where essentially, it's so funny. So it reminds me of that episode, the movie Office Space, right? It's like, so what do you do? It's like, I connect the engineers with the salespeople. Like I'm a people's person. It's like, so you don't actually do anything. It's like, I just told you, I let the engineers talk with the salesperson. It's like, why don't they just talk to each other? Because they don't know how. Like that's, it's like that's kind of like, that's what I thought of. Okay, and then the other one's like be kind, right? So right now, are you being kind with the way you're posting on social media? What's the intention? Like what's driving your motivation to post that? Not saying it as a way to shame, but just to actually take a look and like what
shed some light on it.
Yeah, like what feelings what other people get from reading that, right? Will that actually like make the difference? It's the craziest thing. So going back to what you said earlier, I am you. What does that mean? We're all
in this together.
We're all in this together, and our own life only really has value in context of others, right? I could tell you right now, if you're conservative or liberal, right? If it's like Avengers, right? Like all the conservatives disappeared, or all the liberals disappeared, then we'll find other stuff to bicker about. That's just where we're at right now, okay? If all the peoples of color disappear, it was all white people, then we'll start discriminating based on hair color or the shape of your nose or something. It's not the skin color. It's where we are consciousness right now.
Yeah.
Right, and that's where we're at. So, and this stuff is just becoming way more obvious now than before. It was always there, but now it's like ripe.
It's coming up to the surface.
It's ripe. It's very, very exciting.
Right? It is, because then we get to.
Yeah. So you know what? What's the purpose of this podcast? What's the purpose of this podcast? We actually never said it. What do you think? Well, what is it for you?
For me, it feels like just having those conversations that can shift perspectives and shift mindsets and shift everything.
Yeah, so like for me, right, I'm weird. Most people, won't watch this or listen to this, and then half or maybe a majority of the people that watch or listen to this won't even fully get what I'm talking about. It's totally fine. Just 1 or 2 people, maybe they consciously choose to embody something different in their lives. Like what's the butterfly effect of that? Right, like who are they impacting?
Yeah.
And that, like how does that actually change the world?
Yeah.
Really, like that's why, like, and also, when we get to talk about this stuff, it's just a way to let ideas marinate and come to the surface. So that's the purpose of the podcast for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I like us because I always like talking to you.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. And as we talk, we're like sounding boards for each other, and we understand things more as we converse about it.
Yes.
So again, we're both growing as we communicate with each other.
Yeah. And
as we are growing, you're growing, and so it's just great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also was thinking through this because this is like there's the whole oneness, and we're all connected. But then here we're all so individual, and we all have specific, like, unique gifts and roles within life. And as I was talking about how, like, I felt like my calling was to be more silent during this time and just do all my inner work.
Yeah.
But then also, like, really acknowledging the people who are using their voice and getting out there and, like, standing up and speaking for what they believe in and having all of these conversations with so many people. We all have different roles during this time, and I think that's a really cool
Yeah.
thing to see, and it's really nice to value as well. Like we all
Yeah.
have different roles to play, and if we understanding that and knowing that you don't have to follow the norm of the people around you, like just tapping into what is my role in this moment, how
Yeah.
can I be useful in this moment,
Yeah.
then you can be your authentic self. And the more authentic we all are, the more
Yeah.
we can.
Yeah. So like for example, the new Air Force Chief of Staff is a black general, right? So he released a video just like 3 weeks ago. One, what he talked about was his experiences as a black officer in the Air Force, right? And like, hey, I noticed when I was in the squadron meeting, and I was the only black person, right? And I just noticed that, right? He talked about his experiences where when him and everyone else in the squadron was wearing a flight suit, right? And so he was talking to someone, and someone goes, "Oh, you're a pilot?" Like that wasn't like a thing. And he's like, "Oh," like he noticed that like people had that question where like we're set in that way, right? Not to blame or even like saying whether that person was right or wrong. He was talking about his experiences. He communicated it in a way that was very, very relatable from another human being, right? Like it wasn't like, well, look at these racist people's fault, whatever. It's like, when he's talking about where he's trying to, again, one side's right, one side's wrong.
Yeah.
It was just his experience in a way that's very, very relatable, right? Again, this is my opinion. Let's just say, okay, if you're not white and you want to talk about black rights, if you talk about it in a way where it's trying to educate someone else,
It's hard for the other person to digest and hear.
it's not going to have the effect that you want,
Yeah.
right?
It's not a great strategy.
Instead, what if you talked about it from your experience, what you noticed that your family members, or how you thought, like your personal thoughts, were people you noticed, like how they actually talked about people of color or black people, or if you have black friends, what you noticed that they had to deal with, and how like this is my experience with it, and I would like to actually just bring that to light to make a difference, right? This is just what I noticed. Not educating, not telling people they're ignorant, not telling people they're privileged, or like you don't understand. Like when we say this is what we mean. Like all that stuff. It's just adding a lot of noise and actually making people want to polarize more. Right.
I
like again, obviously I'm a minority. We can't tell, right? But if I'm like, hey, you know what? I remember growing up. I can't think of one off the top of my head.
I don't know.
I'm trying to think of like an incident where I felt like other people were, okay, so like for example, right, like growing up, obviously I'm a minority, so like I hear the Asian jokes, right? What I notice is the jokes about black people just seem to be a little bit more like hurtful, right? Like the jokes I hear about black people versus the ones that I get about Asian people, I feel like the jokes about black people are more hurtful. I even noticed that before, right? So that's something that I can acknowledge. Like I definitely noticed that. I'm like, you know what? If I had to actually get jokes, I would rather get the Asian jokes that I've been getting my whole life, rather than the black jokes. So the black jokes just seem to be more. There just seem to be more hurt in the jokes, right? That's something I can acknowledge. Instead of like pointing fingers at people and making them wrong on that stuff, it's like, look, this is real. Like like this is my experience of it. Take a look for yourself, whether you experience it or not. If you don't, fine, right? But like at the very least, I know there's other people that have also witnessed this, who aren't black, who heard black jokes, who are minorities, who, like, who've been joked on before, and they're just like, compare for yourself. Like just sharing as a human being and communicating that way, right?
Yeah.
Like it would make this transition that we're going through, and it's definitely a transition, so much more effective, and we can simultaneously see and acknowledge and experience our differences and experience each other as human beings. It's not one or the other, back and forth, back and forth. It's experiencing both at the same time.
Yeah, and kind of talking about roles again, I went to a David Baylor event.
Baylor?
There's a David Mailer and David Baylor, and they both know each other.
Okay.
Yeah, so I went to a David Baylor event, and he talked about like what your role and to access like your gift to give and what you feel useful doing. It actually comes from, you can find that through the experiences you've had. So basically he asked us to access like what gift you have and what experiences has a life given you to kind of make you equipped to give that gift. So like me personally, I haven't really I don't have many experiences to share between, because I'm not black and I'm not a minority at all. I'm a white girl. Not a minority at all. Mm-hmm. So I don't have a lot of experience of it. So it's not really my gift or my role. I can, of course, be here to support and show up as my gift and my role is to access authenticity. So that's what I value a lot, and that's my role within my society, I feel. But yeah, he talks about your experiences shape the gifts you can give, and so just being able to share our own experiences of these things will shift other people as well, because they just didn't have your experiences. They don't understand life through your lens. So if you can just share your experience, they can get a taste of that perspective. Honestly, I'm Asian, right? So if I can just only imagine if Ashley's all about Asian rights and stuff, biggest Asian right activist. I'm like, what are you doing? What the you're? But hey, maybe I had an experience,
right? Well, if you actually talk about, hey, being my friends, this is what this is what I had to go through, and this is some of the thoughts you had. This is just your personal experience and thoughts, and your experience dealing with me and other Asians. I would actually be like, okay, it's being authentic. But if you're jumping in to support my Asian rights,
just because that's what's going on,
or just because I'm like.
What are you doing? You don't know.
You quit embarrassing yourself. And so again, that's just my personal feelings on it.
Yeah, and then I also was listening to a spiritual teacher talk about having a conversation with the Dalai Lama. And they had what he thought was a differing of opinions on things, but really they actually thought the same thing. They were just saying it in a different way. But so they were arguing, and the Dalai Lama then kind of paused and said, okay, let's talk about what unites us now rather than what divides us. And the spiritual teacher that was sharing this experience said it was almost getting slapped in the face by the Dalai Lama. And then when they were able to unite, they then realized, we're actually saying the same thing with different words.
There's actually for his 85th birthday, I think this was yesterday or the day before, there's actually a live video on the Dalai Lama's Facebook page where he was speaking to a bunch of police officers in London. So it was I don't even understand half the stuff he's saying, but just the way he is just brings this calming, loving feeling. Just actually washing that.
And then it really doesn't even matter what he says, because who he's being is so amazing.
And his broken ass Asian English. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. Do I nominate the song?
Yeah, this is a long one.
Okay. The song is "Where Is the Love?" Black Eyed Peas.
Oh, that's a good one. Where is
All right.
Black Eyed.
What's wrong with the world, mama? People living like they ain't got no mamas. I think the whole drama. Only attracted to things that'll bring the trauma. Overseas, yeah, we trying to stop terrorism, but we still got terrorists here living in the USA, the big CIA, the Bloods and the Crips and the KKK. But if you only have love for your own race, then you only leave space to discriminate. And to discriminate only generates hate. And when you hate, then you're bound to get irate. Yeah, madness is what you demonstrate, and that's exactly how anger works and operates. Man, you gotta have love just to set it straight. Take control of your mind and meditate. Let your soul gravitate to the love, y'all.
People killing, people dying, children hurt and you hear them crying. Can you practice what you preach, and would you turn the other cheek? Father, 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 help us, send some guidance from above. These people got me questioning, where is the love? Where is the love? Where is the love? Where is the love?
It just ain't the same, always in change. New days are strange, is the world insane? If love and peace is so strong, why are the pieces of love that don't belong? Nations dropping bombs, chemical gases filling lungs of little ones with ongoing suffering. As the youth are young, so ask yourself, is the loving really gone? So I could ask myself, really what is going wrong in this world that we living in? People keep on giving in, making wrong decisions, only visions of them dividends. Not respecting each other, denying thy brother. A war's going on, but the reason's undercover. The truth is kept secret, it's swept under the rug. If you never know truth, then you never know love. Where's the love, y'all? Come on, I don't know. Where's the truth, y'all? Come on, I don't know. Where's the love, y'all?
People killing, people dying, children hurt and you hear them crying. When you practice what you preach, and would you turn the other cheek? Father, 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 help us, send some guidance from above. These people got me questioning, where is the love? 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 Where is the
I feel the weight of the world on my shoulder. As I'm getting older, your people get colder. Most of us only care about money making. Selfishness got us following the wrong direction. Wrong information always shown by the media. Negative images is the main criteria. Infecting the young minds faster than bacteria. Kids wanna act like what they see in the cinemas, yeah. Whatever happened to the values of humanity? Whatever happened to the fairness and equality? Instead of spreading love, we're spreading animosity. Lack of understanding leading us away from unity. That's the reason why sometimes I'm feeling under. That's the reason why sometimes I'm feeling down. It's no wonder why sometimes I'm feeling under. Gotta keep my faith alive till love is found. Now ask yourself,
Where is the love? Where is the love? Where is the love? Father, 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 help us, send some guidance from above. These people got me questioning, where is the love?
sing with me, y'all.
One world, we only got one world, that's all we got. One world, and something's wrong with it, something's wrong with it, something's wrong with the world, yeah, we only got one world.